Going to call to order our meeting for Monday, May 13th at 7:05 p.m. Ms. Eicher, will you please take roll call?
Mayor Christy Melendez.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ken Bennett.
Here.
Miles Baker.
Here.
Barry Wilson.
Here.
Paul Rennemeyer.
Here.
Tom Jones.
Here.
David Soslowski.
Here.
Mr. Soslowski, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? But I'm going to ask that we have just a moment of silence right before he begins the pledge. So last week, we lost a fellow Windsor community, longtime Windsor resident, community member who gave over 39 years of public service, serving on the town board as Mayor Pro Tem, as well as a fellow board member, as well as serving for years on the Planning Commission. And I had the privilege of being able to serve with him on the Poudre River Trail Corridor Board. And so that would be Mr. Bob Frank. And so tonight we'd like to give just a moment of silence in respect for him and all that he did serving our community. And then you may lead us in the pledge, please. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next item of business this evening is review of agenda by the board and addition of items of new business to the agenda for consideration.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer with a second from Mr. Wilson, approving the agenda as presented. All in favor signify with yes, opposed no. And the agenda is approved unanimously. Moving on this evening, we have a special presentation to make. The first one that we're going to make is for the folks who were awarded this, what's called the Seagate Award of Excellence. So the Colorado Government Association of Information Technology awarded the town of Windsor with an Excellence Award for enhancing public-facing communications and services by implementing point-to-point fiber from Town Hall to the Art Heritage Center and Boardwalk Park. The project saved approximately $150,000 by using the point-to-point technology rather than putting fiber in the ground. The technology now allows for more Wi-Fi capabilities at the Art and Heritage Center and Boardwalk Park. Cameron Utoff, would you please stand? And Ryan Phelps from the Information Technology Department are the key players that implemented the entire project, and I think they should be commended, and so thank you very much. We also this evening are going to make note of the Cartograph High Performance Government Award. Cartograph, the town's asset management program, has been incredibly helpful for budgeting, planning, and tracking assets. The public works efforts in keeping data current and using the tool to its fullest capabilities have been recognized with a high performance government award from Cartograph. A big thanks to Brian Rowe, please stand, for his support and partnership with his team, and to Scott Tomatech, GIS, for all his back-end work in making Cartograph so valuable to our employees and the town. So thank you, and again, he's showing off his award there, the award. So again, we commend you and give you our thanks. And I think we would like to have let's get a photo. So all you folks who won awards, do we have room in the picture for all town board members? Okay, let's all go down and let's take a photo with our great speakers. You want to get in. And luckily, I'm short, so I can fit in.
Don't worry, I won't. No rabbit.
Good. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Those 4 are just a small example of what makes, or maybe there was more, 4 or 5. But that's just a small example of what makes this town so great. Part of what makes this town so great is our staff and the employees who work hard each and every day to continue to make this a community we all can be proud of. So thank you very much. With that, I've got 4 proclamations. After I read the proclamation that you are associated with, I'll give whoever the representative is a minute to come up in front of the mic, and if you have a few words that you would like to say or add, that would be your time to do so. So the first one that I'm going to read this morning is for Mental Health Month. Whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall physical health and emotional well-being. And whereas, with early and effective treatment, individuals with mental illness or substance use disorders can recover and lead full, productive lives. And whereas, Weld County lost 59 youth, adults, and seniors to suicide in 2018. And whereas, access to local community-based prevention, intervention, and treatment services are much less likely to require more expensive alternatives of hospitalization or incarceration. And whereas integrated physical and behavioral health care has been successful in Weld through collaborations between North Range Behavioral Health and Community Health Centers. And whereas Windsor citizens have access to 24/7 crisis services for mental health and addiction crisis, as well as an outpatient counseling center. And whereas SAMHSA National Prevention Week is May 12th to the 18th, and Weld County Prevention Partners has long worked in Windsor to prevent suicide and underage substance use. And whereas North Range Behavioral Health appreciates our partnerships with Windsor law enforcement, fire, and the school district to support the community. And whereas North Range Behavioral Health observes nationally recognized Mental Health Month every May to raise awareness about mental health and addictive disorders and the importance of prevention and mental wellness. Now therefore, be it resolved that I, Christy Melendez, Mayor of Windsor, along with the Windsor Town Board, hereby proclaim May 2019 as Mental Health Month. As the mayor, I also call upon the citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools to recommit our community to increasing awareness and understanding of behavioral health and the need for appropriate and accessible services for all citizens.
Thank you so much. I'm Joanna Sinwell. I am the retiring Marketing and Public Relations Director at North Range. Over here, I have brought my successor, Michaela Sanchez, and so you may see her next year, and Bonnie Adams, who is the Program Director at our Counseling Center at Windsor. And that has now been open for almost a full 2 years, full year. Thank you for welcoming us into your community. We now have a school-based therapist at Windsor High, and they now have found enough money to get another one. So That's, I know, close to all of our hearts to make sure that those children are protected and that they have counseling services just as, throughout the school day. So thank you for welcoming us into your community, and thank you for the proclamation. North Range, this arrangement, our collaboration means a lot to us. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know that many of you have attended my community cares and plan to be part of that event. So
Absolutely.
I will look forward to working with you and being part of that as well.
Thank you.
The next proclamation I'm going to read is for National Public Works Week. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives. And whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as water, sewers, streets and highways, public buildings, and solid waste collection. And whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on these facilities and services. And whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, are vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of public works officials. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Now therefore, on behalf of the town of Windsor, I, Christy Melendez, Mayor of the town of Windsor, Colorado, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th through May 25, 2019 as National Public Works Week in the town of Windsor. And I call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. And now, Mr. Terry Walker, would you like to come forward? He is the department head of our public works and somebody who has been serving our community for
43 and a half years.
43 and a half years.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Mayor, for reading of the proclamation. We do take public works very seriously, and we do want to provide the citizens of Windsor a safety aspect throughout all the infrastructure within the town. As you mentioned, May 19th to the 25th is National Public Works Week, but along with that, May 22nd is our safety fair at our Public Works facility, and all the board members and the mayor are invited to that as well. So thank you again for everything, and look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you and your staff for all you do for our town and the community as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is for National Police Week proclamation. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. And whereas the members of the Windsor Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of Windsor. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members or our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of the Windsor Police Department unceasingly provide a vital public service. Now therefore I, Christy Melendez, Mayor of the town of Windsor, call upon all citizens of the town of Windsor to observe the week of May 13th to the 19th, 2019 as Police Week. During this week, I encourage citizens to join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities. and in doing so have established for themselves an inviolable and enduring reputation for preserving the right and security of all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of the town of Windsor to observe Wednesday, May 15, 2019 as Peace Officer Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who through their courageous deeds have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of duty. And let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. Sergeant Ziegler, would you like to come forward? Or Lieutenant? Did I make him a sergeant and he's only a lieutenant?
He's probably got a few demerits.
On behalf of Chief Klimick, I'd like to thank Mayor Melendez and the members of the board for their support. We're very fortunate that we're able to serve in the community here. The town of Windsor and the people here are very supportive of the police department, and we really appreciate it. And again, it's a pleasure to serve our community. Thank you.
Thank you for everything you do each and every day. Okay, and last but not least, we have a proclamation for Better Hearing and Speech Month. Whereas an estimated 42 million Americans, or 1 in 10 families, have some type of communication impairment. And whereas costs related to loss in work productivity, special education, therapy, devices, and medical care are estimated at more than $30 billion per year. And whereas residents of Northern Colorado have overcome their communication difficulties through the services of dedicated audiologists and speech-language pathologists, and whereas audiologists and speech-language pathologists throughout our nation work to help individuals with communication disorders to lead independent, productive, and fulfilling lives. Now therefore, be it resolved that I, Christy Melendez, Mayor of Windsor, along with the Windsor Town Board, proclaim May as Better Hearing and Speech Month. I ask all citizens to recognize the audiologists and speech-language pathologists who work in our state to bring better hearing and speech to those individuals who are affected by communication disorders. During this annual observance, we should focus our attention on the needs of our children who have some form of hearing, speech, or language impairment to ensure that everyone has access to the audiology and speech-language pathology treatment that will help them lead full and productive lives. Is there anybody associated? Okay, please come forward.
Thank you so much for reading that. My name's Lisa Ayers. I'm a speech therapist. I've been practicing for over 12 years, and so it's near and dear to my heart. I've worked with many wonderful children, adults, and their families working towards their communication goals. And I'm currently working for a new pediatric clinic here in town, Bright Skies Therapy Center, and we're hoping to bring more awareness to the community as well and help all of those with their communication disorders and achieving their potential. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we will resume back to the agenda with item 6, Board Liaison Reports, Town Board Member Baker, Tree Board, and Historic Preservation Commission.
Thank you very much. I do not have an update on the Tree Board since our last meeting. They meet May 28th at the Recreation Center. I won't be there. I'm going to be attending an 8th grade graduation for my son.
Congratulations.
Sadly, I'm missing the Tree Board meeting. For the Historic Preservation, we had a quick recognition of the former chair who passed away, Carrie Ann Lucas, a little proclamation for her. We had the election of a new chair, who's Jean Zuckweiler, and vice chair is Ruth Bruner. We got a presentation on their Saving Places conference that they went to from both Jean and Ruth. We got an update on the Windsor Lake signage. They talked about putting water-specific signs around Windsor Lake, so we met with the museum and came up with hopefully some better ideas, and so we don't duplicate efforts with what they're doing. We talked about partnership with the Historical Society partnership, Windsor Sevens Historical Society. Not sure how that's going to work because, as you know, we have to maintain our board. So we've talked about maybe staff acting as a liaison between the two. So we're going to discuss that a little bit further, I think. And for their 2019 event, they're going to host tours at Boardwalk Park on June 6th and 27th. That's the Harvest, and also the Harvest Fest and the Taste of Windsor. So they will have historical preservation.
June 6th and July 27th or June?
I have June 27th.
Because Taste of Windsor is July.
Okay, so maybe it's those two plus the Taste
Because
of
June
Windsor.
27th is Community Cares Night.
Okay, that's why.
So I'm
That's why you know
pretty
that.
sure your Taste of is in July.
Okay.
I don't see anybody
I can double check that.
who, but I think it's usually in July.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay. Let's see. Town Board Member Wilson, Parks, Recreation, and Culture Advisory Board, Poudre River Trail Corridor.
I just wanted to share some numbers for Parks, Recreation, and Culture. These are numbers are basically January through March of this year at the Community Rec Center. 2,194 lunches served, 340 flag football players this spring, 1,391 pickleball players, 365 group swim lesson participants, 1,195 private swim lessons, 790 cultural program participants, and 319 people educated through our culture outreach programs. And I can send that to you, Crystal, if you want to roll in. And very important, tomorrow night there's a meeting at the Rec Center, a strategic planning meeting, and the public is invited to be heard. So those of you that are watching or here today who want to attend that meeting, it's a good chance to have your voices heard of what you want the future of our Parks, Recreation, and Culture Department to look like. So I encourage everyone to attend that. In regards to the Poudre River Trail Corridor, I did attend a meeting with Larimer County Natural Resources, and there's a lot of excitement that's generating. Right now we have over 20 miles of beautiful trail through Windsor, Weld County, and all the way through Greeley to Ida Grove. And then, but what we have going on right now with the I-25 expansion project, the trail will go under the interstate, and we have Fort Collins who's working, Timnath, and Windsor all working together with Larimer County to eventually connect the existing Poudre River Trail into the Timnath-Fort Collins area. So there's a lot of good things happening there, and hopefully later this year we'll have some more concrete announcements, but that's kind of the big thing that's happening for the future. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Bennett, Water and Sewer Board.
Water and Sewer Board met last Wednesday morning, and number of things on their agenda. Janine, our stormwater manager, gave an update on the municipal separate storm sewer system, the MS4, and I'm just going to hit the highlights. There's quite a bit going on. There's 5 pollution programs that we are required to address. The first is public education and outreach. Basically, the requirements have been met, but of course that's ongoing. Group presentations, brochures, events. A couple weeks ago, they met with the Cub Scouts, and Cub Scouts try to develop water purification filtering systems. So there's a lot of activity going on to educate the public about how to keep our water clean. Second program is the illicit discharge detection and elimination program. This needs to be, our requirements need to be met by July of this year. They're mapping our stormwater system. We have a GIS tracking system now that will go to Janine's phone, that if there's a leak or a spill someplace, she will know on her phone right where it is. Training with the engineering department, parks department, public works, and with the water and sewer board. Still to be done is a decision on a retainer to a emergency cleanup company. And by retainer, what that means is they would be on call if there's a major spill, such as a train derailment. We would not, as I understand, we would not be paying if it was not used. So hopefully we never have to use it. Third program is construction site. Our requirements are by July of 2019. We are reviewing site plans for stormwater compliance. Janine will start in June doing site inspections, and she is meeting with designers and contractors. The fourth program, post-construction, is not, we don't have to meet the compliance until July of 2020. updating drainage criteria, and considering doing a workshop with the Colorado Stormwater Council on that. The fifth program is municipal operations, and it's kind of significant that as we are expanding our public works facility right now to include parks, now is an opportunity to look at how we're designing that to make certain that we are properly storing materials, ice, fertilizer, equipment maintenance, fluids, and so forth. The goal of all this is real simple, a clean river. So Janine is doing a lot of work. I just hit some of the highlights. There's a lot going on in this area right now. Two other things for Water and Sewer Board. There was an update on how we are quarterly adjusting our raw water cash and move policy because the price of water is fluctuating so rapidly. The cost of CBT units is going up quite rapidly, so we are adjusting those rates quarterly now and communicating with the development community. And the third thing is they had a discussion about what is appropriate role for the Water and Sewer Board in today's world, and we'll come back with some ideas next month.
Good. Thank you. Town Board Member Rennemeyer, Chamber of Commerce.
Well, I have some big news that only the board of the Chamber of Commerce actually knows right now, so I'm going to spoil some news because according to the email I got last week, every member of the chamber has not found out about this yet. The Chamber of Commerce, as of today, has a new executive director. They have changed the title to now be a CEO or president of the Chamber of Commerce, and that is Mr. Scott Soldad Valenzuela. I'm saying his last name wrong. Scott Soldad Valenzuela. Today is his first day. They're going to be sending out a press release to all of the chamber as well as to the Windsor greater community. They're also going to be having a meet and greet with him. So stay tuned. They're going to be posting stuff to the Facebook page, but they haven't processed all of the press release on that. But today was his first day, and there is no official meeting of the board, the chamber board, this month because of how many times we've met leading up to this decision. This decision was made by the executive committee, executive members of the chamber board. So congratulations to Scott. Today's his first day, and we'll wish him the best as he goes forward.
Town Board Member Jones, Windsor Housing Authority, Great Western Trail Authority.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Excuse me. The Windsor Housing Authority will meet a week from tomorrow. Will be their next regular meeting. The Great Western Trail Authority was ready to advertise for bids for the Severance to Eaton section trail. We were going to do that tomorrow. However, there's been a property line dispute that's developed just east of Severance by one of the owners next to the trail. It involves about a 500-foot section of old rail bed that he claims is his property, and we claim it's our property. So we are having surveyors recheck the boundaries of the property, and as soon as we get that straightened out, hopefully we will move forward. So I'll update you next meeting.
Okay. Town Board Member Kozlowski, Clearview Library Board and Planning Commission.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Planning Commission did meet on May 1st and had a fairly light agenda. They had a public hearing and then did, after the hearing, recommend to the town board the Ridge and Harmony Road subdivision. That is on our agenda this evening. We'll be discussing that. On the library board, they met on April 25th, and it was a relatively full meeting. It's a discussion of adult programming, Trivial Pursuit, competitions at IHOPs, arts and crafts. They did introduce and announce that Kelly Hall, who I guess we would know, I think, on our planning commission, has just been selected as the business outreach coordinator for the library. So she'll be working primarily on business-related data studies and information at the library. I believe she's housed in the chamber, if I'm not mistaken, but she'll be a library coordinator and working with the business community in Windsor. Let's see. The library board also did approve the hiring of a strategic planning consultant, Cheryl Trent, and she will be assisting the library board in working through, getting public input, working through a strategic plan for the library district. And the next meeting of the board is Thursday, May 30th at 5:30 p.m. in the library. Thank you.
Okay. And I have Downtown Development Authority, who meets this Wednesday in the first floor conference room starting at 7:30 a.m. And North Front Range NPO, who met, and I have several items to report out from the MPO meeting. So the MPO did approve unanimously the support letter. I believe that support letter went out to all of us. That shared approval of a supplemental $250 million for the North I-25 segments 7 and 8 from the available SB1, COP, and the general funds. So they supported that. We reviewed information from the Colorado Air Quality Control Commission, and on last Friday they were considering a request of hearing in the adoption of a zero-emission vehicle ZEV program for Colorado. I don't know what the outcome of that was, but hopefully it will lead to a public hearing, or a hearing then scheduled in August for the rulemaking hearing. We approved the audited financials as presented. And then we heard from Rebecca White, who is CDOT's new director for the Division of Transportation Development. So she is there to represent the DTD. She gave a detailed presentation on resetting CDOT's statewide planning process to include all modes of transportation through the development of a 10-year strategic pipeline of projects. Currently, our projects usually look out at a 4-year plan, so this is taking it to a 10-year strategic plan, pipeline of projects. White explained that the geographic information system that they now will be using will be able to provide visual data influencing the areas, which will allow them to change their priorities from simply the priority corridors to really addressing the needs of like the senior population, veteran population, changes that are due to economic factors, the levels of road deterioration compared to what was expected, and where transit service is really needed. We also had a very comprehensive Van Gogh presentation and are looking at how in the future we go about setting fares, looking at how we create routes and what the future of Van Gogh is. Van Gogh has a very large carryover. We have a lot of money in reserves, and so the plan also is looking at what we might be able to do with some of those monies in the future as well. We also had a presentation and looked at the 2019 congestion management process, so the CMP. Ryan Dussel, the transportation planner, presented and defined any segment on any regionally significant corridor that has a travel time index or travel time reliability index of 1.5 or above in either the AM or the PM. They got on that index because he stated if traveling to your destination takes 50% more time than normal or one and a half times as long, it fits the definition of congested. Therefore, the threshold was set at 1.5. So we looked at that plan. We also looked at the 2045 regionally significant corridors plan, which make up the network of roadways that are most significant to regional travel and are included in the North Front Range Regional Transportation Plan. And then the next item I'm going to read to you is pretty significant because with the construction on I-25, there are lots of changes in terms of road closures and traffic, and so we went over those. So State Highway 392 off-ramps forget that, that's already come and gone. 120-day closure, closure of the through movement on State Highway 402 begins May 21st. I-25 traffic will shift and go under the bridge rather than over, starting on May 21st. The co-located office for Segment 6 will be moved into on Monday, May the 6th, and the first construction negotiations occurred recently, and they actually are on schedule, with 60% of design, allowing the Little Thompson Bridge on Segment 6 to go into construction shortly after Memorial Day. We also had discussions concerning Senate Bill 262, a proposed general fund transfer of approximately $800 million through the Highway Users Tax Fund, which will potentially give $40 million to local communities across Colorado. And although it will not amount to a whole lot, there was a suggestion from somebody on the NPO board that these funds from Northern Colorado communities could be committed to cover, because remember, even with that $250 million, there is going to be a $5 million local request. $2 million, my understanding is coming from McWhinney, which leaves a $3 million gap. So the suggestion was the $3 million, perhaps that local match gap for the North I-25 segment 7 and 8 comes out of this $800 million. So anyway, more to come on that. And hopefully we do get that $250 million. I know the commissioners are going to be meeting here. Actually, they're going to be coming, making a tour of Northern Colorado on that Friday that we will all be up at CML. So we might want to dedicate some staff persons, perhaps to maybe meet with them as so that was the indication that they're going to be coming through lots of the communities, kind of visiting, taking the routes all the way through up to Estes Park and into our communities and wanting to meet with local folks and officials. So most of us will be up in Breckenridge, but I think there may be some folks, staff that they could meet with who could still share with them the need for supporting those transportation dollars and why we need them. And with that, that concludes my report, which brings us to public invited to be heard segment. These are for folks who are wishing to participate and to be heard on a non-agenda item. When I call your name, please step forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and then you have 3 minutes to speak to the board on whatever item you would wish to speak. The first person I have this evening is Brandon Battaglia.
That's right.
Okay.
Brandon Battaglia, 306 Hemlock Drive. I'm just looking for clarification on abandoned vehicle ordinances. So I have a 4-year-old vehicle. I'm not using it anymore. I let my registration lapse. I was given a ticket for it being in front of my house, so on a public road. I was told if I was to bring it into my driveway out of public view, that was kosher. I did that. I don't have front plates on the vehicle. I was approximately 3 feet away from my garage, so you couldn't see the plates from the road. I was then given another ticket on a Saturday morning with the guy demanding to see my identification. I refused. Then 3 squad cars showed up and 6 police officers. So this is for my car parked on my property. So, and again, I'm not trying to sound overly aggressive here, but I've read through the ordinance. I'd like someone to show me where I can't do that. Also, is a city code enforcement officer allowed on my property without a warrant with the expressed intent just to look at my registration? And third, do I have to show a city official my identification if I'm on my own property?
Okay.
That's all I got.
That's all you have? Okay. I don't have the answers for you.
I know, I didn't know where else to go.
I know, I appreciate it. I'm gonna reference you to our town manager right there, Mr. Hale, and I'm sure he can make sure that you get in contact with somebody at the police station or whoever you need to.
And the officers were great. There's
You can
absolutely
go
no
through
complaints
and
there.
find out for you exactly, you know, what our ordinance is or isn't, and
Okay.
and so that you know for future reference, or so that you have some knowledge of what happened, right?
Okay.
So,
go over there?
yes, yep. If you'll go to him, I'm sure he can direct you. Okay? And then our next person is Katie, is it Schenner? Sure. Okay.
I'm Katie Shearer, 1225 Crescent Drive. I'm here on behalf of the library board. Just a couple quick updates. I want to thank Mr. Sislowski for summarizing so well our long meetings. As he mentioned, we did hire Cheryl Trent with S-Brand to facilitate our strategic planning process. That's going to kick off this week, and we're inviting a member of the board or someone from the administration on the board to be a part of that advisory committee, so more to come on that. I'm also here to announce the winner of the chili cook-off for Bookmobile Days. It was last Saturday. So if you all submitted a pot, I apologize. The winner was On the Border, the restaurant here in town. So they did a great job. Their chili was a huge success. Everybody loved it, and we had a really good turnout. So thanks to anybody that attended that. And then the last thing I just wanted to make mention of, we've got a lot of great programs going on this month too, and I don't normally talk about all the programs, and I won't. You can always find those on the website, but we have two that are really unique this month, both by Windsor residents. One is tomorrow. For both of these, there's no registration required, and it's, if you know her, it's Danette Haig. Her program's called I Am Enough, and she talks about her personal transformation and journey through a crisis that she had. And basically her message is that with all of our imperfections, we are enough. If you've never heard her speak, she's super inspirational. So again, that's at the library tomorrow night, no registration. And then the second thing, on a completely different topic, it's a history, part of our history series, and it's on Chernobyl. And so United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel retired Joe Bowden, if any of you know him, he's going to talk about Chernobyl, the root causes, and the lessons learned. So again, no registration required, and hopefully you can make it. If you have any questions, you can check the library's website. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item B, the consent calendar. This evening, we have 3 items on the consent calendar: minutes of the April 1st, 2019 meeting, resolution 2019-39, and report of the bills for April 2019. Is there a motion to accept the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor for Mr. Redemeyer with a second for Mr. Bennett, approving the consent calendar as presented. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the consent calendar is approved unanimously. Moving on to item C, board action. First item this evening is ordinance number 2019-1587. An ordinance revising and readopting the methodology and cash in lieu payments pursuant to the intergovernmental agreement concerning land dedication or payments in lieu for school purposes entered into by the town of Windsor and Weld County School District RE4. This is second reading and legislative action. And it looks like Mr. Balstead will be giving us the presentation. Mr. Balstead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Town Board. As the mayor indicated, this is an ordinance addressing a request by the Weld County School District RE4 to revise the methodology for calculating land dedication requirements and in lieu payments for school sites during the development process. The methodology and the cash in lieu fee have not been updated since 2007, and so this ordinance would address the district's request and update those. So there have been no changes to the ordinance since first reading, and the proposal is consistent with the strategic plan mission statement regarding sustainable, excellent, and equitable delivery of services. And staff recommends approval of the ordinance on second reading as presented.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Balstead? I have one question. Because it hadn't been updated for such a very long time, and then we did look at it, is there something now that's set up so that this will be looked at more frequently on some regular basis?
Sure. I think The district has been looking at it on an annual basis. They just haven't been reporting their reviews back to the town board. So I've asked the district if in their annual payment in lieu of reports that they can add some of the materials that were requested by the board during this discussion. For example, the 10-year accounting of the funds that have been collected, as well as their analysis as to whether or not an update is necessary. And while I thought that I asked for an annual reporting, they thought that probably every other year reporting to coincide with the assessor's review would be a good time frame. So if the town board if that's acceptable to the town board, we'll work on getting those reports on an annual basis from the district.
Okay. Yeah, I think it would be important that we review these, on a regular basis, and if you kind of have that locked in, I think that's a good way to do it. Is there a kind of a consensus of the board that?
Yes.
I'm seeing a consensus.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
Mr. Baker?
And maybe reach out to the other districts. I know you did for this time and they were not interested, but maybe check in with them periodically.
Yeah, I think from what I gathered from the Poudre School District is the development potential in the remaining part of that district is so low that they don't anticipate making any changes going forward. Thompson, there is quite a bit of multifamily development at the Brands in that area that they may want to do that. But yeah, we do touch base with them on an annual basis, and we'll see if they want to as well.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we do have a ordinance, and is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance number 29.
Oh, I need to take public comment.
You're right.
Yeah. Or see if anybody, is there anybody, is this a second reading? I don't see anybody out there, but maybe.
Yeah.
This is second reading, so is there anybody who wishes to address the board on this ordinance before we take a vote? Now would be the time to step forward. Okay, seeing none? Would you-
Madam Mayor, I, again,
Okay.
move that we approve ordinance number
My apologies.
2019-1587.
Second.
Motion on the floor for Mr. Bennett with his, Mayor Pro Tem Bennett with his second for Mr. Rennemeyer, approving ordinance 2019-1587. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the ordinance passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 2, a public hearing for final major subdivision, the Ridge at Harmony Road subdivision, third filing. Jeff Mark, the Landis Company applicant, Kristen Turner, TB Group, the applicant's representative. Quasi-judicial, Melissa Misberry will give us presentation, but first I need a motion to open public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer with a second from Dr. Jones approving to open the public hearing. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. Public hearing is now open. Mr. Sosowski?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For the record, I'd like to point out that in my capacity as Town Board Liaison to the Planning Commission, I was present at the Planning Commission meeting during which this matter was previously presented. I wish to state that my participation in the Planning Commission proceedings has in no way influenced me in my capacity as a Town Board member this evening. I will make my decision, cast my vote this evening based solely on the evidence presented during this public hearing. Thank you.
Okay, now Ms. Berry.
Yes, thank you. Again, this is the public hearing for final major subdivision for the Ridge at Harmony Road, third filing. This subdivision was reviewed in accordance with Article 4 of Chapter 17 of the Municipal Code. The site is located on the northwest corner of County Road 15 and Harmony Road. It is zoned residential mixed use and is adjacent to residential mixed use zoning to the west. To the south is general commercial zoning, and to the north is estate residential zoning. So this plat includes approximately 148 acres. There's a proposal for 301 single-family lots. The most of these lots are between 7,000 and 9,000 square feet, though there are some larger lots up on the north end adjacent to the Alexander Estates subdivision. That is the estates zoned area that I just referred to. There are a number of tracts as well in this platting. One is the open space that includes the open space throughout the subdivision and also a detention pond area. There's also a few future development tracks. One is earmarked for commercial, one is earmarked for multifamily, and then a third is for future development that hasn't been determined yet. It will be developed in 2 phases, and it starts with the single-family lots. The first phase is between the Rycroft Drive and Harmony Ridge Parkway. Second phase would be Harmony Ridge Parkway northward. And then there will also be additional phases in the future when those commercial or the multifamily or the future development tracks, but nothing's been planned right now for those. So this does build upon the Ridge at Harmony Road filings 1 and 2 that you've seen in the past. It includes some connections back into the second filing, particularly to the school site. There's also planned extension of the Harmony Ridge Trail that was also being built with the second filing, and also a trail along County Road 15. There are 2 park sites proposed. They will be Metro District parks, not town parks. They're about 1 acre in size, and there will also be off-road improvements to Harmony Road, and that includes widening and some landscape treatment with landscape median treatment. There is a lift station proposed on County Road 15. That's the Box Elder lift station, and that's similar to what you've also seen in the second filing. There was a irrigation route, the service line that went through this property at one time. It has been rerouted to go along County Road 15. It serves some properties to the south, so I just want to bring that out. So here's a little more detail on some of the improvements. In the A boxes, some of those connections to the school site from the residential areas. B is one of the park sites, and C is the other. D is where the Box Elder lift station will be, and then E is the detailing on the median for Harmony Road. Landscaping is included with the subdivision. It's basically the open space areas associated with the residential areas, and then also around the detention pond in the southeast part of the property. I did want to bring up the lift station. It is something that was talked about at the Planning Commission meeting. It is located in the southeast portion of the site. It is similar, actually it's pretty much identical to the lift station that was approved and being built in the second filing. The applicant has added some landscaping around the lift station site to help screen that from the trail. The trail is what's shown in that pink band. It's hard to read with all the lines, but that's a town trail. So we are still working with Box Elder to do some kind of screening on the site since it's so close to the trail, and what so just screen that building, and that photo in the slide is what that facility is going to look like. So we are working with them. One thing I also wanted to mention that happened at the Planning Commission meeting is that we did have a spokesman from the Lake Lee Lateral Ditch Company, Mr. Doug Oshner. He had conveyed that he was concerned that the ditch would become an attraction for the folks that would come to live in the subdivision, and wanted to protect it from, any harm that might come to the people that might be in the area, and then also protecting the ditch interests of providing the water. He had requested that some fencing be added to the south portion of the ditch property to keep people from entering the area. And then he also had requested an access gate off of Weld County Road 15, so that when the trail comes up to that area, that it doesn't become an attraction to go into the ditch corridor. I did want to say that the applicant has been working with Mr. Oshner over the past year on these issues. At the Planning Commission meeting, the applicant's representative, the applicant was not there, but the applicant's representative was going to convey. So the applicant is here tonight if you have any further questions on this particular item, but I did want to bring it up since it was part of the Planning Commission meeting. The application is consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, particularly the growth framework, which is to maintain the character of the community while accommodating future growth that is fiscally and environmentally responsible. It also meets the residential areas framework where the goal is to provide a diversity of housing and residential neighborhoods for the variety of family sizes, lifestyles, and income levels of the community. So notification for this public hearing has been done according to standard operating procedures. A neighborhood meeting was held during the preliminary plan stage, which was about just over a year ago, and those notes were included in your packet. And as mentioned earlier tonight, at its May 1st, 2019 regular meeting, the Planning Commission did forward a recommendation of approval for this final major subdivision, and that is subject to all the remaining Planning Commission and staff comments, including the screening of the lift station between it and the town trail. And those are to be addressed on the final major subdivision plat and materials. So that's the end of the presentation. So staff does request that the following be entered into a record: all the testimony at this public hearing, the application materials, the staff memorandum and supporting documents, and also this recommendation.
Okay. Are there any questions for Ms. Berry? Okay, Mr. Suslowski?
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Berry, can you go back, I'm sorry, maybe 3 slides to the one that shows the Lee Lake ditch? Yes, that one, thank you. Do you have a sense of, well, I didn't quite hear what you said was the resolution on the request for fencing and the access gate.
At the Planning Commission meeting, the representative from the Lake Lee Lateral Ditch Company, Mr. Doug Oshner, had talked about concern about the ditch becoming an attraction to people in the area, and at that meeting he had suggested maybe a smooth wire fence be put up on the southern portion of the ditch property between it and the Ridge at Harmony Road third filing. He also had requested that a gate be added to at the east end of the property where it meets County Road 15 to prohibit people from entering the site.
But I understood the request. What I didn't understand was the resolution. Was there an agreement then on the fence, or is it still?
No, I don't know this. This would be asking the applicant what, if anything, has come of that.
Perhaps the applicant
yes,
can come
please.
forward and answer this.
Okay. It looks from this drawing, for instance, that there are a number of access points that could allow a person to go from the street without crossing private property to the edge of that ditch.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Mark with the Land House Company, Kristen Turner with Birdsall Group. We'll both address this because Kristen was at the meeting. I apologize, I had another meeting as well with a different jurisdiction, so I apologize. But I've had many discussions with the ditch company. We're more than willing to do whatever is to mutual benefit and within reason, however. So we've agreed to do some signage along there stating that it's private property, things of that nature. If he wants a gate, I'd be happy to continue those discussions. But frankly, I think he is more worried about foot access versus vehicular access. And not to sound argumentative as it relates to his requests, but it's really, from our perspective, not incumbent upon us to protect his property. It is incumbent upon us to keep people off best we can. And so we've agreed to signage and things of that nature, but from our perspective, to put a whole fence along that entire boundary is very onerous and very expensive. And I would state for the record, we were not willing in discussions with Mr. Ochsner to put in a fence along the entire boundary. But again, we'll work with him within reason with signage and things of that nature. We can put things in our covenants that help protect their prescriptive rights as it relates to their ditch. And I'll have Kristen mention a couple other things in addition to what I've just mentioned.
Hello, I'm Kristen Turner with TV Group. So the fencing and the gate request, the first we heard of it was at Planning Commission, so that was new to us. What I can say is that typically what you see in this area in northern Colorado is that when you have a ditch, that is often where you'll see your trails be located. They make for a really good corridor and connections throughout all of northern Colorado. So in this specific case, at their request, we are providing no trails along that, no foot access. We are providing signage. We're directing all of our traffic internal to the site, all of our walks, all of our soft surface trails. So there is nothing moving up into that area to encourage people. We have planting in some of the greenbelt openings that are for drainage and utilities, and hopefully some of those evergreens will stop people from walking through there. But it would be our position that a fence, if a fence was required, that would be something that would be, their responsibility to continue on that property, as that's off of our property. And then related to the gate up along 15, I can understand the concern there. Looking at it from a different perspective, as you can see, there's a large open space. It creates this big triangle up in that area. So a gate on its own, I think, would be fairly ineffective. If you were to create some sort of fence that came far enough down, it would need to come down onto Mr. Mark's property and somehow connect into a rear yard fence. It often will open up new challenges. So you have a fence where you don't have eyes on it, where trash can gather behind it, where people can be behind it and people aren't seeing that. So in general, we like to keep our open spaces open. And when we have fencing and things in open areas, we prefer to see low open fences. So from our perspective, it seems like a gate in that area would not be really sufficient in keeping people off of that access. I think the signage is going to be probably the most helpful thing to let people know that it's private property and that it's not meant to be, it's not part of that community trail.
I just want to mention two other quick things. Dating back several years, we started laying this part of the subdivision out and doing our land planning. And part of why you see the separation between our back lots and the ditch was for that exact purpose, was to create that separation. So we felt like we kind of had given a little bit in those discussions several years ago and properly planned the area to have that separation to keep people's private residences and their backyards from abutting immediately up to the ditch, which we could have done from a planning perspective, but we thought this made for a better subdivision. And then lastly, we don't disparage or dispute their concern for trespassing. We have the same concerns on all of our properties, and it'd be no different than somebody from our community or otherwise trespassing into the residents of Alexander Estates. And so again, I would commit to continuing to work with the ditch company. We own ditch shares, we pay our assessments, and so we don't have a negative relationship, make no mistake about that. We have a positive relationship. There's just a few things that we're just not on the same page and we frankly don't agree with. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Jones.
Did you consider, in your early planning stages, did you consider putting a trail along the ditch and then that was nixed, or that was never in your plan?
We never planned it. The ditch, because it kind of has its own natural trail, actually, because they have an access road so they can drive in and maintain the ditch. And so cleaning and removing debris and all the other stuff that ditch companies do. So there's kind of a natural trail, and that may be part of his concern, is that people may be looking to potentially walk on that. But we've tried to keep people further to the south. And so we did never plan a trail, to answer your question, no.
Okay. Mr. Baker.
I have a question for our attorney. Who's typically responsible to protect their ditch? Is it the ditch company's responsibility?
It's generally the responsibility of a landowner to fence out, not to fence in, but to fence intruders out. So in Mr. Mark's example, I think he's correct that if the ditch company wants to keep people from entering its property, the responsibility for fencing falls on them. So Colorado is a fence out state.
So my bigger concern is that trail. It is a natural place, people walking the trail, to want to follow that ditch, especially with the access road. So I think I would encourage, however you guys get it done, to have, even if it's split rail fence with signage, I don't think you need a brick wall or something, but just some sort of delineation that you're not supposed to walk this way.
Yeah, so that's why we thought the signage would be the first step. And that's not to say we can't, or our Metro District can't continue to work with them if there are issues in the future. But all of our property owners or builders, whether it be the residents after they purchase the home or the builders, there will be fencing along the rear of these lots. And just to reiterate, we try to prohibit any form of access through any of these common areas to their prescriptive easement in their ditch by simply just not putting trail systems through that area.
But again, I think there's a natural inclination for people to follow that.
And we don't dispute that, yeah.
It'd be nice to work together on that.
What's the farthest distance between, like, the house to the ditch? What is that distance?
Well, if I had to just give you a ballpark, you can see these, and setbacks vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but I'm just gonna assume a 20-foot front setback. A prototypical house in this area would be 50 feet in length, and a lot of these lots are very deep. They're 150-ish. Some of these I think are 150 to 180, and these are ballpark numbers, by the way, because I don't have the plat in front of me. But these are all certainly 125 to 180-ish feet in depth for a range. So if the house, let's just say for an average width, or excuse me, depth is 150, you've got 25 plus 50, 75. I'd say even to the rear of the house to the rear of the lot would be approximately 100 feet, 80 to 100 feet. And then you have the buffer in addition to that. And Kristen, do you know what that range is? On paper, it looks like it's 30 to 50 feet.
Okay.
So it'd be over 100 feet on average.
Okay, Mr. Baker has a follow-up.
I have a question about the open space. It says there's approximately about 34 acres. It looks like a huge amount of that is on the southern section along Harmony.
Those are actually future development tracks. There's a couple, do you want to speak to that? Yeah, we have detention on the south side. We have commercial on the south side. So the bigger blocks that you're seeing are simply either future development or open space / detention.
So that's the detention area on the southern.
Yes,
the southeast.
Correct.
Yeah, southeast.
Detention.
Okay, so it looks like a huge amount of the open space is for detention.
That would be accurate, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, the lift station, it's in the southeast corner of your property. How close is that to Harmony Road?
I believe the site itself is, I'm doing the math here, is about 150 feet length on County Road 15, so 400 feet north of Harmony.
How much?
I'm guessing about 400.
400 feet. I just, my question was if
Maybe
the
350.
landscaping would be appropriate. You know, Harmony is pretty busy. It's not really an entryway to our community, but it's kind of a gateway. So I was just thinking about the visibility of that from the highway, but it's 400 feet back.
About 300 to 400 feet, I'd say. And so probably wouldn't be viewable from Harmony, maybe definitely from County Road 15.
It will be. And how extensive is the landscaping? I couldn't really tell from the drawing.
So there is, between Harmony Road, there's landscaping already on the south portion, and then there's the open space area, which has some of the larger evergreens that are going in north and south of it. There's also some to the west, but that's not what we're talking about. So they have added the landscaping north and south. It's what to do with, on the Box Elder property itself,
Okay.
since that's not going to be the applicant's property anymore. It's going to be conveyed to Box Elder. So we've been working with Box Elder on what they can do on that property to help screen it.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Dr. Jones?
I guess probably for Melissa. We have 2 one-acre neighborhood parks planned for the 300 homes, is that correct?
That's correct, and they're in Metro District parks.
And that meets all our requirements as far as?
It does. There's a large park site on the second filing, and then it's gone through Parks and Rec Department for comments, and they are not requiring an additional park.
Is the larger site, is that going to be a community park, or is that another neighborhood?
It is a community park.
That is a community park. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Mr. Redmeyer?
This lift station that's actually pictured right here, is there anything planned to obscure the view of this thing? Because it's 50 feet off of.
Right, that's exactly what we've been talking about. We've been working with Box Elder to screen the eastern portion here between County Road 15. The pink is the trail again, and this is the facility from the site plan view. So between here and in this area, we're looking for some kind
No,
of
I'm
buffer.
talking about the one that's pictured right there.
The one that's pictured there. That I do not know what will happen with that. We had talked about that internally with staff. I believe there's some commercial sites that are around it, and those could be developed to add
This is
landscaping.
like 50 feet north of the Harmony Road, though. I don't think the commercial is gonna be in between this and Harmony Road.
We can work with Box Elder to see what they can do on this site as well, but it's already gone through that plotting process, so it's not really part of this.
I understand, I was just
application.
asking you what if anything was gonna be done to screen that?
Is the
I
screening,
don't have
so
any
along
answer
those
to that.
lines, consist of just landscaping, or is there any kind of fencing around?
Well, they are talking about a privacy fence. It wouldn't be wood, it may be some kind of material that's a little more durable or maintainable over time. That is one thing they are interested in, because they do not want to have to extend irrigation as much as possible, not extend it. So they are looking at the fence option right now, and whether or not they will be able to pull on some water.
The box elder will serve this area into perpetuity, is that correct? I mean, even if we get a line out from Windsor, box elder will continue to.
That's my understanding, unless something happens to the district itself, but that would be a bigger issue. So yes, that's who's going to serve it as long as we can see.
Anyone else? If not, this is the public hearing. If there is anybody who wished to address the board on this agenda item, this would be the opportunity to step forward. Seeing none, if there are no further questions from my board members, then I would seek a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer with a second from Mr. Baker to close public hearing. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. Public hearing is now closed. Moving on to Resolution 2019-40. A resolution approving a final major subdivision, the Ridge at Harmony Road, third filing, Jeff Mark, the Landis Company, applicant Kristen Turner, TB Group, the applicant's representative. Quasi judicial, Ms. Berry, anything further to add?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or comments from board members? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve resolution 2019-40.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer with a second from Mayor Pro Tem Bennett approving resolution 2019-40. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the resolution passes unanimously. Moving on to item 4, ordinance number 2019-1588. An ordinance amending the Windsor Municipal Code concerning renewal requirements for sales tax licenses and requirements for sales tax licenses and requirements for business licenses in the town of Windsor, Colorado. Mr. Moyer.
Yes, ma'am, as that long title describes, a shorter way to describe this is that this is another step in improving our sales and business licensing process. A little background on this: when we started collecting our own sales tax and had our own sales tax code, we made all the sales tax licenses expire on a calendar year basis, meaning they had to be renewed January 1st every year by everyone. And you can imagine, as we grew, that got to be a big job in November and December. Now, when we started collecting our own tax, we did not at that time have a business license for people for like service industries or anything like that did not collect sales tax. A few years later, we did institute that business license, and we made that one renewable 12 months from the time of purchase, which, as you can imagine, makes the flow of work during the year easier. So 2 things that we are addressing here in this ordinance is the first thing about the sales tax license will now be, instead of being renewed on January 1st by everybody, it will work the same way as the business license when it's from their anniversary date of purchase. And we can track that through our tax accounting software when people are coming up due to renew their license. We will notify them on and on. The other part of this involves mobile food vendors. If we had them when we started collecting our sales tax, I didn't know that we did. And even now, we don't have too many. But the way our sales tax code is written currently, we describe them as a business, and each brick and mortar business in town, even if it's the same owner, has to have a separate sales tax license for each establishment. So when the mobile vendors started, we approached it the same way. They had, wherever they wanted to set up their truck, they had to get a separate sales tax license for that. As you can imagine, after a while that gets kind of cumbersome. So what we're proposing here is that the owner of the truck or trucks himself can get one sales tax license, and we will approve the places where he's planning to set up. We'll check with the planning department and make sure that's not a violation of zoning where these individuals want to set up. Now, it'll be critical on finance that when a mobile vendor comes in to get a sales tax license, we have to make sure they know they have to pass it by planning commission, the planning department as well. Like with anything else, we may have a couple hiccups in the beginning, but as I said at the beginning, this is another step in trying to improve our licensing process. So this is first reading, and it'll be back again, but we wanted to get this started because the weather's getting warmer, and I imagine we'll be getting more mobile food vendors. So outside of answering any questions, I would recommend we approve this on first reading.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Moyer? Mayor Pro Tem Beck.
Location, does it matter if it's on public property or private property?
It cannot be in the public right of way, and jump in here if I'm wrong, okay? And it can be on private property if they have the owner's permission.
Okay. Do we need to, is that something we would approve? Or they go straight to the business owner?
The way I envision it is they have to have permission from the business owner before and then we would have to say, yes, the zoning is okay there.
Okay.
Any additional questions? Mr. Wilson?
I just want to say thank you. I actually heard from a resident who has a food truck about this process, and I know I've seen her truck at least like at Riley Auto Parts, Mash Lab, High Hops, and yeah, when she described the process to me, it did seem cumbersome, so I'm glad to see this coming across. I think it makes it easy for the vendor as well as the town, so thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions, Dr. Jones?
Yeah, now prior to when everything was renewable the first of the year, and somebody came in for a license in June, you prorated it till the end of the year?
Yeah, we used to, well, no, I think in June, they had to pay the entire amount.
Oh, before June?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
But I think when it got to be like November or December, we just plain didn't charge them for those couple months.
Are we raising the fee too? Because I thought it was $10 and now it's $25.
It is $10, yes.
Okay, because it's.
Oh, no, I mean, I'm sorry.
It's gonna go to 25,
Yes.
but it has been $10,
Yes.
isn't it? So it's going up.
Yes,
And that's for, everybody pays the same
yes.
license.
Unless they have liquor, then they have to get a liquor license. Of course, you guys know that.
Any additional questions, Mr. Soslowski?
No question. I guess I'd just like to comment, pick up on Mr. Wilson's comment as well. This is well thought out. It simplifies your workload and I think it makes the process easier for business, food trucks. So this is a,
Well,
thank you for.
thank you.
taking that piece together.
I'd have to include legal and planning department in that too.
No, I don't. Thank you.
It's okay, you can take all the credit.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we do have an ordinance. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance number 2019-1588.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Reinhardt, a second from Mr. Wilson, approving ordinance 2019-1588. All in favor, vote yes. Opposed, no. Now, first reading, that passes unanimously. And stay tuned for part 2, Mr. Warrior. And then there'll be part 3 from Mr. Moyer as he delivers the financial report for February 2019, followed by the financial report for March 2019.
Yes, thank you. February's report, it's doesn't really have anything glaring about it. On the one graph for the, well, let me back up by saying all of the property, or the sales and use tax collections were higher than February of last year. And we talked about that in here, driven a lot by the number of building permits that we have issued. One thing that is different, and I think it's on page number 6, is there's a big, oh no, I'm sorry, page number 4. We talk a lot about geocodes and where we collect our sales tax, and I think it was Mr. Bennett asked for a comparison to the prior year of all of our geocodes. That appears there on the bottom of page 4. And we also have we have added in March 2 new things which I'll talk about in a moment. The chart on the top of page number 3, you can see that the collections for February in both the 3.2 and the 0.95% are below the black monthly requirement line. Not by much, but still below. I looked back on last February's report, and it was the same way. But it's a higher amount, just it's still a little under the monthly requirement. I think we didn't collect much property tax in February, but that turned around quite a bit in March. The February expenditures, the benchmark 16.67, operations is 12.78, capital 5.36 for a combined 9.41. So we're doing okay there. Page 7, the one thing we changed on the graph on the top of the page, in January we had, under the blue line is our 2019 budget, or year-to-date budget. And on the January report, we had that filled in solidly. We changed up the look a little bit here to try and make it a little easier to read. Obviously, one that stands out is the water system. The expenditures are way above where the budget was supposed to be. The reason for that is we made a big payment on our Northweld water line project. So that got back into shape in the March report. And of course, the major capital projects on the last page. So if you don't have any questions on that, I will move on to February.
Yes, Mr. Solowski.
The graph you told us to look at on page 7, if I'm reading it correctly, the blue line is the year-to-date budget. And then the 2019 year-to-date, the orange bar, you pointed out the water system.
Yes.
Obviously being quite a bit above budget.
Yes.
Okay, so what'll happen is the budget will catch up to it as they're
Yes, which I think in the March report it does. Yeah.
Any additional questions?
I had a comment I want to make. I really appreciate the geocode because I'm still thinking about when we do incentives for businesses, I want to be able to see what difference did it make. So like, example, the downtown development geocode, as the mill comes on later this summer, I'll be watching to see if that really makes an impact on revenue from the DD area.
Mhm.
So I really appreciate having that. Is there any reason why the revenue from King Supers is down a little last year?
Offhand, I couldn't really say.
Okay.
But I can look into
Well, that's
it.
good. I was just curious if there was something going on there. Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I have a question along the geo thing as well. It would pertain to any report or each report. For the Brands East,
Yeah.
we offered a tax incentive, a sales tax incentive. Is that factored in here anyway, or is this, don't we have to give them a rebate at some point?
Yeah, we have a tax sharing agreement. What we show on these numbers is we generally work off of the gross collection that we show in here, just, to show how well the unit is doing, or that region is doing.
So that doesn't reflect what we'll actually get at the end of the year?
No, that was just the gross collections for the month.
Okay.
Which if you want, we could do another chart showing the places where we have the revenue sharing agreements, gross versus net, that kind of thing.
Like geocode.
I think that'd be nice to see.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Any other questions?
I'm sorry, I was just
That's
writing that
okay.
note.
Did you have anything further, Mr. Moyer?
No, not on February.
Okay.
Okay, then in March, the revenues are pretty much the same story as in February. They're higher than last year, but just slightly below the monthly requirement. The difference from February to March being we started to collect some of our property tax. So now there was a big swing from the percentage we were at in February to where we are in March. Which leads me to another thing. Speaking still about the geocodes, I enclosed in this packet a map that shows all of the geocodes in town. I realize that the print is kind of small, and we can get you a bigger one if you like. I mean, we got poster size ones if you're so inclined. The other thing I noticed just this afternoon was that the charts on page number 5 have not been completely updated. So I did have a point concerning those charts, but I will get the corrected ones in here and include a report in my weekly update to Shane with those 2 charts updated. But what I was getting at there was the other new thing that I put in in the packet with this report. And it is a page from our 2019 budget. It looks like this. And what that is I think it was in the January report, there's a question about how much, our largest expenditure category was salary and benefits. And could we expect that much that was in January's report to be reflected in each monthly report? So what I did was you can see in the budget in the middle of the page there, personnel for the 2019 budget is 17.7, nearly 17.8 million. That number, I circled and drew that number above, that 1,482,766 is that number down below divided by 12. So that is what we can expect to pay if we get it in a straight line for salary and benefits. Now, what will happen is through March, we didn't hire a lot of people yet. with the summer coming, you know, the next few months, we're probably going to get a little bit ahead of that. And then when the summer's over, it will come back down. So, I mean, as far as comparing to a monthly outlay of cash. So those were the two new things. The expenditures were where they should be. And I already mentioned that we collected quite a bit of property tax in March. So again, that's my report for March. I will get a corrected one in the report to Shane for Friday.
Any questions? Mr. Sislowski?
Yeah. Dean, I have a question on that same year-to-date expense chart. I don't know if we need to do this here. I can probably just drop you a note to get some clarification.
The one on page 5 there?
Well, I'm looking February to March, and I had that question on the water system.
Yes.
And the orange bar is at about 1.5 million, obviously over the year-to-date budget. And when you look at March, that orange bar is down at about 600,000 maybe. But if it's year-to-date, then it can't be lower than whatever we had in February.
Yeah, I did not catch that. I will look into that too.
Okay.
We got in a little bit of a rush on the March report, so I probably would have been better served to just wait until the next meeting, but I will look into those.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for Mr. Moyer? Okay, if not, thank you for a fine report.
Thank you.
And we will move on to communications. Communications from our town attorney.
Don't forget, we have an executive session tonight, and also after that, we'll convene a brief Kern Reservoir and Ditch Company board meeting. That's all I've got.
Communications from town staff. Mr. Balstead.
I did want to also say that our community development report and building permit reports are just a little bit behind right now. The two staff members that recently left were the ones that were largely responsible for those reports. So you will see building permit reports soon, and we'll get back on track with the community development report. Other than that, I just have the Windshire Park, the Public Works and Parks expansion facility under communications. If there are any questions or comments, please forward those to staff, and we'll include those in the review.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner?
I have some maps and photos I want to bring up here. I want to talk about potential for spring flooding from the river. Let me open these up. I want to start first with County Road 13. That's of course, the farthest upstream. First of all, this is a map of County Road 13 that shows the location where the Poudre River tends to flood County Road 13. And what happens first is when the river comes up to around 3,000 CFS, it starts backing up in this area right here I'm pointing to. And there's a borrow ditch here along County Road 13 that starts backing up that borrow ditch, and then eventually will spill over County Road 13 where I've indicated here. I think it's been about 3-4 years ago, we put in a small little embankment or berm here with a culvert in it. Of course, you need a culvert there because under normal conditions, when it rains, water runs down this borrow ditch and wants to return to the river, and we need to allow it to do that. But when the river starts backing up the other way, we try to reduce that or stop that as best we can. So there's a culvert we installed through that little embankment with a slide gate that is manually closed when the river starts backing up here. And that is proven to buy us some time
in avoiding flooding of the road right here. However, if the river continues to come up beyond the 3,000 CFS, then it will go ahead and flood. And I have another aerial photo here I wanted to share that this is an aerial photo of the 2013 flooding, and I'll zoom in to that area I was pointing at a minute ago. So this is what it looked like in 2013, and this red line represents that little berm that we put in and culvert. But you can see here, the whole area is completely underwater, and that little feature will not do anything to avoid flooding of 13, which you see here. This is all underwater and it's flowing east. So if the river gets that high, then unfortunately there's nothing we can do to avoid that. But there is kind of a little sweet spot there of certain flows in the river that we can avoid what we have experienced as kind of nuisance flooding through the road. So that's County Road 13. And then I wanted to talk about 7th Street. Let's see. This map right here. This illustrates 7th Street going south out of town by Eastman Park. But what we were experiencing quite frequently with high river flows was flooding right here at 7th Street and River Place Drive. It would come across here and flood to the east. And of course, whenever a road like that floods, you have to close it to traffic. And that being one of the major roads into Windsor, it's very critical. So in 2015, we constructed this Eaton Ditch flow control gate, and the reason why it helps us is you see this heavier, wider blue line, that's the Poudre River, and when the river reaches about 3,000 CFS, it'll start spilling out of its banks to the south. It flows overland, gets in the Eaton Ditch, which is this narrower blue line. It'll fill the Eaton Ditch, and then what we were finding is the Eaton Ditch would be flooding overland in areas like this and here, and it would all be flowing towards this intersection of 7th River Place Drive, and once it got to a certain height there, it would go over the river or over the road. So we looked at that and said, you know, if we can keep the Eaton Ditch flow within the banks of the ditch downstream of this location, why don't we build a structure here with a control gate and control it that way? And so 2015, we constructed this. Oops. We constructed this structure right here across the Eaton Ditch with this slide gate, and we can control the flow through that, and we can let as much water as we want through that to where only it'll stay within its banks downstream, and then avoid flooding 7th Street. And I also have another photo of the 2013 7th Street flooding. There's something wrong with the labeling here, but I think you get the idea. The label's missing for some reason, but right here is the Eaton Ditch flow control structure that we constructed. But the river, and this is the location that floods at 7th and River Place, there's also another place that will flood eventually, and that's right here in between the two curves south of the river bridge. And if the river gets that high, as it was in 2013, there's nothing we can do about that because our Eaton Ditch structure here will not control that at all. So at that point, then of course, the road has to be closed. So those are the two places that we try to control some flooding, and the 2013 was a interesting year because we finished this structure, and 8 days after we finished it and it was operational, the river came up, and we started throttling this with that gate at that time. And we, going back and looking at the river flow for that entire spring, it was clear that we avoided closing 7th Street for 23 days that year. If not for that structure, 7th Street would have been closed for 23 days. So it was
I
very
remember that well.
Oh,
That was my first board, that was my district. And my first person that complained was Mr. Rennemeyer.
And I would like to thank the now mayor and Mr.
Because he was the HOA president at
Guess
the
I was.
time, and all his HOA folks came out, and that was my first meeting I had to have with a bunch of constituents who had a real big problem. And so our town engineer brilliantly came up with this idea, and it seems to have solved the problem ever since. Or so far to date, right? Knock on wood. Yes.
Yeah, and County Road 13, besides 2013, for a while there, it seemed like it flooded almost every year, at least for a short time. 2013 was more extreme, but it hasn't, knock on wood, it hasn't happened. And, maybe that's just the conditions, maybe it's the structure that you built as well. So-
that structure has some minor effect.
Yeah.
If we could just cap, stop it at 3,000 CFS.
Yeah, there you go.
We could save the day, but unfortunately, it's not uncommon for the river to come up above 3,000.
Well, and the way Mr. Wagner has presented this tonight, that head gate that we see up there was constructed after the 2013 flood, but we had, before the 2013 flood, had flooding at 7th and River Place just from spring runoff in May and June, and which is what led to this. This was actually constructed, it was reconfirmed by the 2013 flood, but since it's been constructed in 2015, Pluger Heights has yet to flood, so, with spring runoff, so. Thank you, Mr. Wagner.
What happens upstream when you drop that gate from the Eaton ditch?
You can see it doesn't do anything upstream because your river is flooding anyway. And what it's doing is just keeping the river water in the river instead of going down the Eaton ditch. So
It makes its way back to the river sooner. So that's instead of flowing all that way, because the river kind of bends there, so it just makes its way quicker.
So, the Eaton ditch, we may be talking about 100 CFS that we're keeping from going down the ditch. It's a fairly small ditch, so 100 CFS will flood it. So you're talking about 100 CFS out of maybe 4,000 CFS. So it's very minor to the river, but very important to us and to 7th Street.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Moyer, did you have anything more? Lieutenant, did you have anything more? Okay, communications from our town manager.
Yes, Mayor, I am happy to let you know that the town placed 5th in the Mayor's Water Challenge. This is hot off the press, so same as we did last year, so haven't lost any ground. We had a total of 1,497 pledges and estimated water savings of 6.1 million gallons. So I think great job to the community, and next year we can try
Can you
to...
tell me that number again of pledges?
Yeah, so 1,497.
Okay.
So roughly 5% of our community got on and pledged, and with estimated savings of 6.1 million.
Okay, thank you. Communications from town board, Mr. Baker.
Yes, thank you. Something I forgot at my historic preservation report. They have the virtual walking tours online on our website for the churches, and the presentation we received a few weeks ago on Walnut. So just from the homepage, if you hit Explore, there's something called Virtual Walking Tour, and you can choose either the churches or downtown, it's called. But it'll highlight, you can click on different buildings and get a little bit of history on each building. So it's a fun little thing to look at.
Okay. Anything else? I have 3 items that I just would like folks to remind folks of. So this Saturday, May 18th, from 7:30 to 9 at the Community Recreation Center, I will be hosting several folks from Weld County. I believe we have the clerk and recorder, the tax assessor, and Commissioner James so far to date. I know for sure that will be joining us for conversation and coffee with the mayor for Saturday, May 18th. That is this Saturday. The following week, I'm introducing, for those who don't like to get up on Saturday morning, Dessert and Dish with the mayor. That is going to be held on Thursday, May 23rd from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Colorado Cherry Company. And that evening, I am going to host as my special guest Perry Buck, Colorado House of Representatives, District 49, who's going to go over with us what just happened down at the legislature. So what all went on during that session. So you can join me for both of those, as well as on Monday, Memorial Day, the American Legion is hosting their annual memorial service at the cemetery starting at 10 a.m. I don't know who the keynote speaker is, but I will also be speaking as well at that. So we invite you all to come out to honor all those on Memorial Day at the cemetery at 10 o'clock. And I believe afterwards, generally, the American Legion does host something back at the Legion following that service. So I just wanted to make mention of those items this evening. And with that, we do have an executive session. Mr. Rennemeyer?
Madam Mayor, I move that we move into executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-402, subsection 4E and I, for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators with respect for certain economic development incentives presented by Ms. Jill Young and our economic development specialist.
Hey, we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer to move into executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second from Mr. Baker. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. We will be moving into executive session. How about with about a 5-10 minute recess, and then we will adjourn in the back room. Thank you.
Meeting on the morning? Somehow popped on my calendar.
Is this one about you now?